Welcome. How's everyone today? All right, it is past 7 and we do have a quorum. Did not see a line out there, so I am going to call the meeting to order. How's everyone tonight? It's good to see everybody. Just a couple of ground rules before we get started. First of all, we all have the clickers if we need them tonight. Does everyone know how to use them? We'll go over a quick review. The clickers are on and they're ready to go. So if everyone wants to pull them out and put them on their hand, we'll do a little test vote so make sure that everyone knows what they need to do. Tonight is a good night for a town meeting. If you think that's true, press 1. If you don't think that's true, press 2. All right, and you have 10 seconds left. It's the last button you push, so if you push the wrong button, go back and push the other one. The last one you push is the one that's going to get registered up here. Oh, 10 of you are not happy about it, but the rest of us are good. All right, so tonight, hopefully everything will go smoothly. We are going to limit everyone to 2 minutes talking time. If you are not a Lenox resident, when you come up and if you want to speak, you need to tell us who you are, and then we have to get 10 people in the crowd to say that they would like to hear what you have to say. That said, if we do get a lot of people who are not Lenox residents, we're going to give priority to the Lenox residents speaking. So I will, if you are not a Lenox resident and you'd like to speak, can you make sure that you come to this mic over here and just let me know so that we can make sure that the Lenox residents get a chance to speak as well. Okay. You can go ahead.
My name is Max Scherf, Pine Knoll. I move that the town vote to waive the reading of the warrant and return of service thereof, and to authorize the moderator pursuant to MGL Chapter 39, Section 15, to declare a 2/3 vote on voice votes if he deems it so.
Second. Explanation. So this is, I gotta get behind you. This is just our normal entrance so that we don't have to read the entire warrant if we don't want to, and I can call a 2/3 vote. If anyone questions that, you just have to raise your hand and then we can go to the clickers if you'd like.
Yeah, nothing's changed on mine.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 2.
Greetings, Neil Maximilian, Cliffwood Street.
I'm not.
I move in Article 2 that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $3 million to the town manager to pay costs of paving town streets, construction of sidewalks, and reconstruction of sidewalks, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto. Wonderful wording, isn't it? That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow $3 million in General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, or any other enabling authority. The town manager is authorized to contract for and expend any federal or state aid that may be available for the projects, and that the town manager is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out these projects.
Second. Explanation?
Has been our habit for probably 6 or 7 years now. We have been asking for the money to do the summer construction projects that the DPW typically carries out in the fall so that the projects can be designed and bid during the winter time under the thought that we get more competitive bids if they're bid during the winter as opposed to waiting until after the spring town meeting when most contractors have already figured out what they're doing for the summer. The specific projects that are being talked about here are 2 main projects. One, the reconstruction of Housatonic Street from the bypass down to Crystal Street, and the addition of a sidewalk from East Street down to Crystal Street. Housatonic is in terrible condition, and there is no sidewalk currently from East to Crystal. The other project under consideration here is reconstruction, replacement of sidewalks, primarily on Church and Franklin Street. We have a very old and frequently failing sewer system on Church Street, which the DPW is out jetting and repairing almost weekly. And that needs to get replaced. And in the course of replacing that, much of the sidewalks will get ripped up. So this is the authorization to replace them.
Yeah. Do you want to come up to the mic?
No, I can do it from here, that's all right. I'm Claudine Joyner, 318 Housatonic Street. As you know,
No one can hear you, Glenn, so that's why you have to come to the mic. So everyone can hear you, I'm sorry.
I will go to the mic.
I can't change the output to the regular shotgun when it's set to this cable. So it would have to be HDMI for me to fix this on my end.
Okay, do you need an HDMI?
Mindy, can I come back there real quick and just see?
I live at 318 Housatonic Street. My daughter Karen is 312 Housatonic Street. And I'm sure you're all well aware of the problem we have with the flooding of our backyard, no matter what, a small storm, rainstorm, snowstorm. And it's been mentioned that it's possible that the culvert across from, I don't even know if it's a culvert, but the water comes down right straight from St. Anne's, all the way down through town to right to across the street. And at that point, it is directed directly, purposely, to go into our backyard. And I'm just wondering when and if, before you put all this new road and sidewalk in, if something is going to be addressed to that problem that we've had. And we're even over on the East Street part of my property, the culvert is too small. Is any, I know this is, you all know how my backyard floods. Everyone goes by and keeps telling me we should have a swimming pool, but it really isn't funny. I turned 90 this year, and I might want to have to sell my house soon. I'll never be able to sell it with this kind of a problem in the backyard.
Well,
We never had this before when we moved in. It was dry. I mean, Alan and Joe Getz built a fort in the back. So we know that it's a problem from all of the houses and everything that has come, been built. And so I'm just wondering if there's going to be addressed at all, or if we are going to continue to have this problem.
well, first let me congratulate you on turning 90. The specific project that I'm talking about here is not a drainage project. However, your problem is well known. We have drainage issues in Lenox, and I don't want to speak for the superintendent Gopp of the DPW, but we do have drainage projects in the pipeline to improve drainage in downtown because we are aware that we lack adequate drainage. Actually, go ahead.
Bill Dopp, 65 West Dudley Road. So it doesn't exactly address the issue in your backyard, but the front yard, when the road is repaved, it'll be reshaped, and the drainage will be, there's a drainage culvert across your road that will be repaired, and that'll take a lot of that water. And then with the road new shape, there'll be new curb lines that will help direct the water to the catch basins. Right now, the sidewalk sits low, so a lot of the water gets behind the sidewalk, and that's where a lot of the problems come in. So with this, it will be fixed to go to the drainage where it should be. That won't fix all the problems in your backyard, but it should address a lot of the issues that the road was having with flooding.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
We will look into other projects for the culvert underneath East Street in the future.
Oh, are you still talking to me? I'm sorry.
I ramble. But we will look into in the future, we are gonna look into a new culvert for the backyard, that area too.
Okay.
But it won't be addressed with this project.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Hello. All right, it's a little off the scope of the project, but we let it go. Any more discussion on Article 2? If you do want to step up, please come right up to the microphone.
Randy Grimmett, 169 Underground Road. I just want to know on the sidewalks in town, right now there are pavers. What are they going to be replaced with? What's it going to look like? How much scope is being taken into beautifying the sidewalks and the project to make it look aesthetically pleasing? Has the Historical Commission been asked to opine on what it should look like? If you do what you did at the park, right across from Frankie's and Bohema, that sidewalk looks beautiful. So if you could replicate that through town, that would be great. But right now you have like pavers, fake pavers, stamped concrete, like a lot of just, it's a mishmash. So what is it gonna look like on Church and Housatonic streets to make it look like one cohesive, actually thought through, process driven, aesthetically driven sidewalk system? We have a charming town, but the sidewalks, just replacing them with a mishmash is not going to be adequate and certainly not warrant, approval of this without some plan for like what they will look like.
Quite a few questions there, but
It's really one question.
Yeah, so
what kind of thought process has been put into what the sidewalks will look like?
the design that's currently contemplated is available. I think it was a handout, and it's certainly available for you to look at on the website. It is currently contemplated to be a combination of concrete for the walking area of the sidewalk, brick for the decorative areas, and grass. That's not final because the Historic Commission has been asked, but they have not reviewed it yet, so they will obviously review it. So the details of the aesthetics of doing it haven't been finalized. And you are correct, there is in the works a long-term plan to address the entirety of the village in terms of the aesthetic of the sidewalk, the parks, the greenways, all those things. But that's several years out. I'm guessing 75% of the sidewalks because of all the services to all the businesses. So we have to put something back. So this is an ask to authorize the funding to put something back. It's not finalized in terms of the aesthetic, and we would be risking catastrophic failure of the sewer system if we waited until we were able to do a comprehensive plan for all of the village.
So when might the ask for the more comprehensive plan come and what will that cost?
Any idea, Chris? I mean, it's
So, sorry, Christopher Ketchen, 388 Housatonic Street, Town Manager. So Mr. Maximilian's correct that the long-term plan for the village is something that's been talked about. However, we don't have a group yet. These are all things that have to be done. In the meantime, we don't want the sidewalks torn up until we come up with a we'll say a long-term. Don't hold me to it. I'm going to guess 5 years. I know that process has to play out. And there are a lot of ideas in town, and I hear, perhaps not all of them, but I hear 75% of them. And y'all don't agree about what to do in the village, so it's going to take some time to figure that out. While that's happening, we have what is admittedly a more traditional sidewalk fix along the lines of what you see, at least for the walking section in the new Triangle Park. because the sidewalk areas happen to be wider, we want there to be some brick accenting in the meantime to not make it all gray space.
So may I just suggest that at the very least, that consideration is taken so that, there's a consistency to the sidewalks in the village and that they, again, just simple poured concrete with the right foundation is better than, sort of stamp pavers, bricks, concrete, asphalt, which you can find in any 2-block radius in any part of the village if you walk around. So consistency would be preferable until the long-term plan is approved, rather than, what I hope we don't get for $3 million is 10 feet of concrete, 6 feet of brick, 4 feet of asphalt, 4 feet of concrete, 6 feet of brick, because that currently does not look good. So hopefully we can address this in some way.
That absolutely is the intention, and again, okay. Sorry.
And Dave? Thank you. Dave Klausmeyer, 8 Shermanhorn Park, Lenox. No matter what the outcome of the decisions to replace or replicate, clearly we have tens of thousands of dollars worth of paving bricks and side bricks that are going to be removed. And I brought this up at one of the prior information meetings. My suggestion is that we set aside that debris and make it available to anyone in Lenox who wants to put in a patio or a walkway or whatever for a period of, let's say, 5 years on some town property, and after that possibly make it available for redo or whatever. But there's a huge amount of materials that are going to be excavated and disposed of, and I'd like to have that be a part of the consideration of the project to make it available for a redo, available for Lenox residents. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Take this off. Thank you very much for listening to what I have to say. I'm here tonight. Who am I? I'm Olga Weiss. I'm chair of the Historical Commission. And I'm here really to just raise some questions because the Historical Commission is really interested in the way this project ends up looking. As you know, my passion is Lenox. My passion is the preservation of Lenox, to have it look beautiful, to be a place that everyone wants to come to visit. So I need to put my glasses on, excuse me. Learning how to do this with 3 legs is really hard. Okay, so not all of us could be here tonight, and our most expert person on the commission is an architect designer with national credentials, and she raised some very interesting questions, and I wanted to share it with everyone so that we have it to consider. She says that she's sorry she can't be here tonight, but the current plan, while addressing important sewer issues, needs to be redone to address the cohesion of the entire streetscape downtown. This is not simply an engineering exercise. It is a plan with long-term impacts to the entire look and feel of the downtown. Design professionals should be engaged through competitive RFP. I have no idea if any of this has been done. It would be so, if I'm making a mistake here, I'm sorry. To ensure that the lead is a group that identifies important elements beyond engineering. Schedule should be not the indicator of any plan. Proper planning and cohesion with the master plan and smart design should be the leading edge. I hope I'm making sense. Feel free to take these points and refine as you know best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We are voting on Article 2. This is a 2/3 vote to authorize the borrowing. So, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Dave Rose, 375 Housatonic Street. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to create a debt service stabilization fund and further to transfer to said fund the sum of $1,750,000 from free cash as certified on July 1st, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Explanation?
I'm going to put it in terms of layman's terms so that I could understand it. So we've got about 60 or 70 million dollars of construction projects coming up. We got a sewer plant and we have a public safety building. We've already voted the funds for it. But what this is going, and it's not going to happen for a while, but what this is doing is we're opening a savings account for the debt service on those loans. It might be years down the road, a couple of years down the road before we tap it, but we promised that we were going to start this account so that it wouldn't affect our real estate taxes. We have plenty of money in free cash, so we're going to use some of that to start this account to pay the loan down when it starts.
Okay. We are voting on Article 3. This also is a 2/3 vote for the creation of the stabilization fund. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay?
Thank you.
Unanimous.
Mr. Moderator, Ed Lane, 101 Crystal Street. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to the town manager for the engineering or related services to support the ongoing review of the Housatonic Rest of River cleanup.
Explanation.
Okay, here's the explanation. The implementation of the 2020 permit for the Rest of the River cleanup has begun. Over the next several years, the town will need to evaluate and analyze all the plans, the proposals, and everything that would be submitted for the cleanup. The town does not have the expertise in-house to perform this highly technical and complex evaluation needed for this project. Lenox is determined to bring as much analytical firepower as possible to bear with each step in the process, beginning now and progressing through the entire cleanup. We need to contract with outside experts to make sure the Lenox's interests are represented to the maximum extent possible at every stage of the process. And this is going to cost money. So whether you agree with the cleanup or not, you should support this article. It's the right thing to do to make sure that our town has the resources it needs to do the job right and protect our interests. And just one other thing. Now, I know it's not quite within the scope of the article, but it's been suggested to me, and I agree that it needs to be said, that there is currently a comment period for the transportation disposal plan for the river cleanup. Copies of the plan are available at the town manager's office, and we'll have a copy on the homepage at the town website tomorrow. Get a copy, read it, come talk to me or one of my other board members or the town manager, and then make your comments known to the EPA. Thank you.
And the deadline is February 1st, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Roberta Bianco, Golden Hill Road. I have a question and about the engineering firm. And my first question, actually I have two questions, and I want to know how many other engineering firms were considered before you chose Weston and Sampson? Just curious about the process.
Really, we didn't get into a lot of detail about the project. There's not that many companies that do this work. This is a very large company. They've worked for the town in the past, become very well respected, and I think they have the firepower to do it. Bear in mind that this is over a long period of time. This is probably just the first installment of money we're going to be asking the town to vote for them. We can change at any step of the way. We're not going to sign a 10 or 13-year contract with Weston and Sampson. So we can, if we feel it's necessary, we can change it.
Is that typical that you hire a company, you don't put it out to bid and look at the scope of work or what their expertise is?
I think Chris would have to answer this question as it gets into the bidding process, that type of thing. But I think
I mean, if it's going to be over 13 or 15 years and it's $100,000 the way that article reads, it says, or any other sum, is it 100,000 every month? Is it 100,000 every?
This is a one-time expense, $100,000. Any other time we can't spend money. We can't just redo the contract. We'd have to come back to town meeting to vote to appropriate that money. It just can't be done by us.
So typically you would hire a firm without putting it out to bid because it would seem that if you come to the citizens to ask for money, that it would be that you did some sort of an evaluation about this firm. And I'm just curious, were there 2 other firms, 3 other firms, 5 other firms, and this one rose to the top? And if they did other projects, what were the other projects in town?
So we've had a long-standing relationship with Weston and Sampson, and I brought them on to address a couple of very specific time-sensitive matters. And we have Weston and Sampson now, but Mr. Lane is correct that as new work plans are rolled out, and we have to consider the specific need and the specific skill set that needs to be brought to bear on whatever it is that's being considered. We may go with other firms. We have Weston and Sampson now for this. They are one of the very few firms who deal with this subject matter who are not already conflicted out for having done work with GE before. So it was a decision that I made to meet several reporting deadlines. You can read those reports on the EPA website. And as time goes on, we'll be utilizing this appropriation, hopefully that you approve shortly, to bring in whatever skills we need from whatever firm we need to get them from to make sure that the town's interests are represented throughout this cleanup.
Well, as you know, I came to the meeting last night and I spoke about being more transparent and public. And so I moved to amend the motion under the above article to include the following. The contracted engineering firm will provide timely public reports to the citizens of Lenox via the Lenox Select Board. The reports to the citizens of Lenox should be prior to the end of public comment period, if any, or 60 days if no comment period is required.
So
what I'm
she moved
saying.
she moved an amendment. I need that in writing. I need your amendment. So there's a motion on the floor to amend. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Let me just look at this for a second. 'Cause yeah, I just need a clarification.
for the comment period for the transportation plan is due to the EPA by February 2nd. Is that what you're talking about?
Any period, if this is going to be ongoing for 13 to 15 years, I imagine there'll be different plans put forth that.
So you want a continual update, which is I agree with. That should happen. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what you're looking for?
It doesn't say anywhere in here, it just says that they're going to do this work. I think it would be prudent to.
Hold a second, Ron.
Mr. Moderator, this is an article to appropriate $100,000 for a discrete project. An amendment to require reporting for the length of the project is outside of the scope of this article. So if the comment period were to be the February 2024 deadline, that would be within the scope, but beyond that is outside of the scope of this article.
So can we amend it that has to, whatever they report back needs to be timely for this 2024, for February 1st, 2024? It needs to be a public, presented to the public, because how else will the citizens of Lenox be able to also comment on that?
Robbie, I think I understand what you're getting at here, and frankly, I agree with you. We'll probably use Weston and Sampson to help us formulate our ideas for, and anybody else who wants to give us ideas for the transportation plan, which is due February 2nd. After that, whoever, if it's Weston and Sampson or whoever it is, we should provide you with periodic updates. I get that, I understand that, and we will do that. I promise you we'll do that. I know that's not a vote thing, but that's a doable thing and it's an understandable thing. And I can promise you we'll do our best to follow through on that.
So it's not, we can't amend that to say that they would give a public comment or that you would give a public statement before the public comment period.
I'd have to ask Attorney Bard about whether the legalities
We're
of that.
appropriating $100,000. Is that to be used between now and February 1st? Is that
Some of it, but not all of it by any stretch of the imagination.
So what I suggested is we've written the reports to the citizens of Lenox should be prior to the end of, and then I put the February 1, 2024 comment period.
Thank you.
And then we would delete the language after the February 1, 2024 public comment period, put a period there, deleting the phrase, if any, or 60 days if no comment period is required. So since there is
Right.
that
In this case, there's
delete
a
that.
period. Thank you.
No, that's gone.
All right, so just to clarify what we've done here for everybody, the amendment that's on the floor would be, the amendment would be that the contract engineer firm will provide timely public reports to the citizens of Lenox via the select board. The reports to the citizens of Lenox should be prior to the end of the February 1st, 2024 public comment period. That's the amendment. And that was already seconded. So I just want to clarify that that's the amendment we have on the floor right now. Would anyone like to discuss the amendment? Anyone want to make any discussions on the amendment? All right, so what we're going to vote here is just on the amendment, okay? So you're not voting on the article, you're just voting on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? It carries. The amendment carries. Now back to comments on the article.
Hi, Francine Weinberg.
Can you get a little closer to the mic, please?
Francine Weinberg, 12 Sherwood Drive. I'm trying to get my head around the $100,000 that we may approve appropriating now to work on correcting a misdeed carried out, a misdeed by GE many years ago. I'm trying to get my head around the $100,000 that we may appropriate now versus the money that GE has already committed to paying the town of Lenox. Is there a relationship between those numbers? Is this a $100,000 expenditure that can be compensated for by taking money out of the, 25 million that GE has agreed, proposed to give to the town of Lenox?
I think I understand exactly what you're saying, and you're right. The GE gave the town, we received from GE $25 million. That money, because of Department of Revenue reasons, can't be spent now. We have the money, it's in our bank account, it's drawing interest. We can't spend that money for 1 year. We can't wait a year to get this process started. After that 1 year, oh, believe me, we'll be using that money for this type of thing, yes.
Done. Thank you.
Dave Klausmeyer, 8 Schermerhorn Park. This is indicative, I think, of many questions that are going to come around for the next 13 or more years if this process continues. And I would suggest we have a ledger available to us as to that money that supposedly came in, or has come in actually, and also how it's being expensed and put out. This is one example of money going out. There are probably many that are behind the normal operations of the Lenox business. And I'd like to suggest that we have some kind of a ledger where appropriate, Chris or others, inform us as to how this money is going out, because it's a sizable commitment that we made to incur this activity. And I'd like to have some kind of documentation over time for those of us who are either here or look back on this years from now saying, was it appropriate and did we do the right thing? And what can we do different to expand on this value? Thank you.
So absolutely, but I'll take it a step even further than that. I think that point is absolutely right. And going further, of those funds that the town received, every dollar of those funds will have to come before this body for appropriation. I don't know if that was clear, but I would like to make it clear that is what the law requires. Mr. Lane indicated that we have to wait a year to access it. It's more of an accounting function than anything else. But once it is eligible for expenditure, it cannot be spent by the select board, the finance committee, the town manager, or anyone else unilaterally. It must come before town meeting for appropriation moving forward. Just if to the extent that was not clear, I hope it is clear now.
Okay. We're voting on Article 4. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, Mary Beth Mitz, Dunmore Court. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $95,055 to the Affordable Housing Trust from free cash as certified on July 1st, 2023.
Is there a second? Second. Explanation.
Thanks. I asked, as the chairman of the Affordable Housing Trust, I asked the select board to consider using 25% of the short-term rental tax revenues certified for fiscal year '23 to move 25% of those funds over to the Affordable Housing Trust so that we could use that to fund our first-time homebuyer program. We are making adjustments to that deferred grant program to increase the amount from $10,000 to $20,000 to help families who wish to move into Lenox. We believe that there's an argument to be made for the fact that some smaller homes or more affordable homes may be being purchased by investor owners moving into Lenox that might possibly be taking those out of the hands of younger families who would otherwise move to Lenox. I presented that idea to the select board and they agreed that we could put this on the warrant for this meeting.
Sebastian Pikutowski, 322 West Street. I am a Lenox resident, but a renter. And I was wondering if these funds would apply to present residents who are not homeowners, but would very much want to be.
Absolutely. You would be eligible to go to any local bank, become credit and income qualified. There are qualifications that a household would need to meet. You have to be under 100% of area median income for your household size. The banks that we work with, all of the banks in town know about this program, and they would be able to put you through the application process and let you know if you qualify.
Thank you. And I see that on the last page of the last paragraph, it says future residents. And that is where my question stems from.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's currently living in Lenox who's renting would be eligible. Anybody moving in from, out of state, out of the country, moving into Lenox who is eligible and income qualified would be eligible for these funds.
And if I may follow up with a second question, you mentioned people who might be interested in purchasing properties as investments. If they qualify, would they be able to get those funds as well?
No, you have to be an owner-occupant of the home.
Thank you.
Sorry, folks, it's me again, but as a founding member of the Affordable Housing Trust and Committee, I applaud you for the time.
On your vision as being one of the founding members of the trust, it's the Declaration of Trust that we use today that you folks created about 20 years ago. So thank you, David.
Thank you. Might I offer a suggestion? The impact of those who chose to buy or to utilize their real estate for the rental properties, the consequence to Lenox is positive, not negative. It's not a cost to us. It brings in people who spend more money, restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a plus in that regard. It's not a consequence. And therefore, I would encourage you to consider a much larger donation to the Affordable Housing Trust beyond 25%. Let's make it 50 or 75%. It's so meaningful to us to have people within our community who represent community, diversity of community, and we've got to sponsor that. Thank you very much.
Okay, we are voting on Article 5. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? It is unanimous.
Thank you.
Good evening. Tom Delasco, 12 Hillside Drive, Planning Board Chair. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw so as to replace existing section 8.12, large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations with a new section 8.12, ground-mounted solar installations, as set out in a handout at special town meeting and in substantially the same form as discussed at the Planning Board public hearing held on November 14th, 2023. And further, to amend section 6.1.8, maximum height number of stories restrictions by adding roof-mounted solar panels to the exemption as set out in a handout at special town meeting and in substantially the same form as discussed at the Planning Board public hearing held on November 14th, 2023.
Is there a second? Explanation.
The proposed zoning bylaw, an amendment presented before you tonight, is a culmination of several months' work by the Planning Board. We've utilized services provided by Berkshire Regional Planning Commission to make recommendations on how to make our solar bylaw comply with state law and allow for a wider use of solar installations. We've compared bylaws from other towns, reviewed current court cases, and taken advice from town council. The Planning Board is confident that this bylaw forms a delicate balance between a wider use of solar installations, but also limits the intensity of the use. For this presentation, please refer to your handout labeled Ground-Mounted Solar Photovoltaic Installations. The Dover Amendment to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, which is the Zoning Act, applies to solar installations like it applies to educational and religious uses. Local government must allow for solar installations to be built. We can regulate where they go and impose performance standards for siting, so long as the regulations are reasonable. We can't use excessive setbacks or outright prohibitions that zone out places where solar installations could go, unless those prohibitions are necessary to protect the public health, safety, or welfare. The current bylaw governs large-scale ground-mounted solar installations of 250 kilowatts or more. A system of 250 kilowatts will cover about 1 acre of land, or about the size of a football field. It also restricts these installations to the 2 commercial zones along Route 7 and 20 corridor and the industrial zone along Crystal Street and Willow Creek Road. The restriction to 3 small zones could be challenged in court as an unreasonable regulation, which is a violation of state law. The limited set of site plan review standards also restricts the zoning review process. The new bylaw defines small-scale and large-scale installations based on land coverage. For example, a small-scale solar installation would cover a land area of less than 1 acre. A large-scale solar installation would cover a land area of 1 acre or more. It would also open up more land in town where ground-mounted solar installations could be placed. It imposes all of the applicable requirements of site plan approval, which is a separate section wholly in the zoning bylaw, and all of the dimensional requirements of section 6.1.1, again, another whole section of the Lenox zoning bylaw. The new bylaw imposes a maximum size limit for small-scale installations in residential use, and also imposes a greater street and lot line setbacks for large-scale installations. During the review of the ground-mounted solar bylaw, the Planning Board wanted to clarify that roof-mounted solar systems are not regulated by the zoning bylaw. Section 6.1.8 would be revised to add roof-mounted solar arrays to the maximum height exemption, as you can see behind me. That's it.
Would anyone like to comment on this?
My name is Richard Riedel. I live at 423 New Lenox Road. And I also have a small-scale solar array on my property. But I'm just looking at these requirements here, and it seems that they're permitted in R1A, the large-scale requirements, on page 2 of the handout, but they're prohibited in R3A. I'm just wondering what the reasoning for prohibiting them from a larger plot is.
So we looked at all of that. The R3A zones in town are the extreme western edge of town and the extreme eastern edge of town. So the majority of that land is either under conservation restriction, it's the state forest, it's swampland, it's basically all land, mostly land that an installation like this couldn't be built upon.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Tanya Subotniak. I live at 10 Cedar Lane, Lenox. I'm also the Director of Sustainability at Williams College, and in that role, I'm a strong proponent of solar development. I do, however, want to make sure that it is done in a smart way and protects our natural resources so that we don't exacerbate other environmental problems at the same time as we try to tackle the urgent issue of climate change. So I have a question for clarification. The Department of Environmental Resources recommends for siting preferences for solar development that where a solar facility is sited, as well as placement on the site once selected, is an important consideration, particularly in regard to large-scale ground-mounted facilities. DOER strongly discourages locations that result in significant loss of land and natural resources, including farm and forest land, and encourages rooftop siting, as well as locations in industrial and commercial districts or on vacant disturbed land. Significant tree cutting is problematic because of the important water management, cooling, and climate benefits trees provide. In regard to farm properties, rooftops are preferable. If roof space is inadequate, non-productive, non-arable agricultural land is the second preferable choice. So my question is, looking at the R1A designation, zoning designation, 63% of Lenox's land would potentially become open to large-scale ground-mounted solar development. How much of that land is in line with these recommendations, meaning what percentage of that land would actually not result in significant cutting of trees or impacts on arable and meadowland, including wetlands?
Well, I don't think I can answer that question specifically, but what I can say is the dimensional requirements of Section 6 apply. So they're not exempted unless it's in the commercial C1A and C3 in the industrial zone. So you're only allowed to cover a certain percentage of land as outlined in that section of the bylaw. So in a residential R1A zone, I think it's 20%. So you would need a minimum of, a 250, like I said, 250 kW array covers, so by definition, large scale is at least 1 acre of coverage, right? So you have to have, so if it can't cover more than 20% of a plot, that plot has to be at least 4 acres. Then if there's considerations like, wooded areas, wetlands, all that kind of stuff, the parcel might have to be even bigger in order to fit an array of that size on the lot. And as I said, Section 3.5, which is site plan approval, applies to this as well. That's a very stringent site plan approval process that takes all of those things into consideration. Site profile, access, drainage considerations, wetlands, all that kind of stuff. So, all that stuff would be reviewed by the planning board, by the zoning board, I'm sorry. And, they would be subject to a lot of conditions under all of that.
So you feel confident that the new bylaw is written would adequately protect.
Yes, yes, actually, we think it's more protective than the existing bylaw.
Ellen Rose, 375 Lenox Street. I speak for myself and myself alone. I'm sorry I'm having an asthma attack because the subject gets me so upset because currently in my residential area next to me abutting will be 13,000 solar panels built, 8 feet to 12 feet in the air. So this is a very personal, hard subject for me. So what happened to open landscape in Lenox? CDC buying property, the land trust buying open property. Now it sounds like all we're doing is wanting more and more solar. Are we really doing this to our town? I mean, is it that the state is forcing us? Is that your answer?
I don't think it's that the state is forcing us, but we have to comply with that Dover amendment in state law. We can't zone it out.
The previous speaker had some wonderful points about that, the number of trees that are going to be cut down and the beautiful landscape that we're going to lose. So does this apply to Cliffwood Street, to Skirmahorn Park, to East Street, to the McNinch property? All these properties could become large solar farms?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it has to, the big thing that the large companies look for is a close proximity to an interconnection. So where the solar field you're talking about is very close to a main electrical line that they can tie into. A company like that is most likely not going to want to locate a large-scale solar system like that where they have to run an extension cord 15 miles to get to a substation. Not likely, it could happen. Not saying that's, but what we're trying to do here is open it up for more homeowners to be able to put a small array on their ground in their yard.
So in their front yard, their backyard?
Well, that's all subject to review, by the zoning board. And you have to comply with setbacks just like any other structure. So we're treating small scale solar and residential use like any other structure, like a garage or a shed, a ground mounted solar array. So you have to comply with all the underlying setbacks on your property. So, for example, where I live, it's in the R15 zone. If I wanted to I have a 1 acre lot in the R15 zone. If I wanted to put up a small array, my house has a 1,200 square foot footprint. The array in the yard could not be any bigger than per the bylaw. The array could not be any bigger than 1,200 square feet. That's 30 foot by 40 foot, roughly.
So if the height of these things and seeing on a road how tall they are and going by, is there restrictions for things like that?
There's the height restriction, I believe, is 15 feet in the bylaw.
And if it's on a hill and you're going to see it, does it make any difference?
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
Kate McNulty Vaughn, 10 Post Road. I'm also on the planning board with Tom, who's presenting, and I'd like to respond a little bit more to the question that the previous lady asked. And assure people that we had lengthy conversations about this idea of tree cutting for solar due to other input that we had that happened in other towns. So we spent some time actually putting in 2 sections, I think in the purpose section and also in an area that we call special requirements, additional standards for review. We have a focus on preserving natural site features, minimizing tree and soil removal and field disturbances, and minimizing impacts on scenic, natural, historic, and agricultural resources. So as these projects presumably go to the ZBA through site plan review, these will be the factors that will be in front of them. While they might not be able to say no to a project, they will certainly have to minimize these kinds of impacts. So we believe that we kind of have cornered that aspect of things. In addition, this idea of some of these in residential zones, if there's no, even if it's an open piece of property and has no house, as Tom said, you're limited to the size of your house as what you can, in any of the zones in residential use. You can't build an array that's bigger than the gross area of your house. If you have an open lot that has no house on it, it would be confined to the underlying coverage of that zone, according to 6.1.1, sounding very plannerish here. But basically, there are limitations on these things. They cannot come in and just, go corner to corner, side to side. And we've doubled setbacks in these places, tripled them almost from street lot line. So we feel that we added in a lot of protections while also offering some opportunity to get more solar.
May I speak again? Sounds great, but I can tell you what happened next to us. They came in and took all the trees down before they even did anything else. So it happens. They're only interested in the money they can get through the state for all these projects, and they've done great damage already.
That's okay.
Do you want to answer that, Tom?
It wasn't a question.
Okay.
It wasn't a question, it was just a statement. We're voting on Article 6. This is a 2/3 vote because it is a change to the zoning bylaws. So, all in favor of Article 6, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Nay. It carries. 2/3. Article passes. Article 7.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw by amending language related to hotels, motels, inns in section 8.1 of the zoning bylaw as set out in a handout at special town meeting and in substantially the same form as discussed at the planning board public hearing held on November 14th, 2023, or take any action in relation thereto.
Is there a second?
Second.
Explanation.
Existing language in the Lenox zoning bylaw has created a way for property owners to convert apartment units, particularly in the downtown village, into what are essentially short-term rental units, but without adhering to the short-term rental zoning bylaw. The planning board seeks to close this loophole and clarify language so that apartment rentals are more likely to remain apartment rentals for members of the Lenox community versus becoming short-term stay accommodations. For this presentation, please refer to your handout labeled "Amend the following sections relating to 8.1 Motel Inn Hotel." So this slide just shows, the sausage making process of striking, highlighting new language. So under the definitions, under bed and breakfast, we seek to strike inn or lodging and add minimum of 4 but. Under hotel, motel, inn, we seek to strike the word units and replace it with the word rooms. We seek to strike the definition of motel unit in its entirety. Under short-term rental, we seek to strike the word lodging house. Under section 5.2, we seek to strike the word inn from bed and breakfast. And again, in section 8.3.1, the same thing. Under section 8.1.1, we propose adding the following language as shown in red. The major thing here is basically 1, 2, and 4. The principal use of the building is providing lodging rooms without kitchens for transient guests. This statement actually exists now in the current bylaw, but it's kind of buried in it and it's not quite as clear. We're seeking to clarify that. A motel, inn, or hotel should be comprised of multiple attached rooms with a minimum of 3 rooms or suites available to the general public. Again, the planning board felt that a motel, a hotel, or an inn is not really one room. And we would also like to see full-time on-site management is required.
Okay, any discussion on this?
Hi, Jeff Lynch, 51 Taconic Ave, Lenox. This zoning amendment is directed at a loophole that I think I utilized with my client. My client owns many of the properties in downtown Lenox. His name is familiar to everybody on the select board, everybody on the planning board. And I think calling it a loophole is a negative connotation. The zoning bylaw as written allows for tourist homes within the definition of motel. My client put forth an argument that that definition allowed for a special permit to issue to convert what were apartments in some of his buildings in the commercial zone and have them designated by the special permit process by the Zoning Board of Appeals. It was not a loophole. It was a thoughtful reading of the current zoning bylaw, which the ZBA agreed with on 5 occasions unanimously. What did this do? This resulted in my client being able to move forward with full-scale renovations of buildings that haven't been touched in 20 plus years. By choosing to have his buildings classified as hotels, he was then subjected to the commercial building code standards, specifically life safety. He knew this going into this. He knew the expense that was going to be incurred in having his buildings classified as hotels. What does that mean from a life safety standpoint? That means monitored fire alarms, fire extinguishers, exit lighting, and sprinkler systems. If he had chosen to leave these as apartments, the fire safety, life safety standards that he would have to meet would be smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. That is all. So yes, in spending all of this money, in increasing the safety for the visitors that we want to invite to Lenox and enjoy, he went to that cost. He's improved these buildings tremendously. He has invited visitors to Lenox who are enjoying the product. His market plan has proved itself correctly. I don't think that the zoning amendment is addressing a problem that really exists. If these were not converted to hotels, they would be short-term rentals. The market conditions in Lenox, unfortunately, are dictating that using a vacant building in the commercial district in particular as a short-term rental is more profitable than using it for a full-time residence. That's an answer that's not being addressed by this revision. My client has spent time, energy, and a lot of money upgrading the commercial district of Lenox, and to specifically target what he has been able to achieve, I think is a negative message to him, and I think is also adversely affecting really what the end result is, which is a safer building for all of our guests, for our friends and families that come and rent these buildings. So because I don't see that this zoning amendment is actually achieving any stated goal, I would ask for a no vote on it. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, may I speak?
Susan Lyman, 28 Skirmahorn Park, Lenox. I'm also on the planning board. I just want to point out that in 1975, when I graduated from college, I was a Berkshire County native, but my father was in the paper industry. We moved around a lot. I graduated from college. I came back to the Berkshires. Because of all the places we lived, I felt this was the most beautiful. I took a job teaching French at Berkshire Country Day School, making a pittance. Neil, I think you were my student. Making a pittance. I was able to get an apartment on Cliffwood Street. That could not happen today. And this project that the developer has to take apartments and convert them to motel, hotel, whatever you want to call it, will seal the fate of this community in that young people, as I was in 1975, cannot come back here and get a place to live. And I would ask that this community support. I have friends who lost their apartment because of this development. I would ask that this community support what it means to be a community, which is to have people who live here year-round, who work and contribute to this community in many, many ways. And I'm afraid that opening the door to allowing these apartments to be converted to motels, hotels, is actually a step in the wrong direction. And I ask that this be passed. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Arthur Oliver. I live at 35 Greenwood Street. I absolutely support this amendment, and I agree wholeheartedly with what you have said. This town has evicted so many people from apartments already. If you don't know what they are, I invite everyone, I implore you, please, just walk down the streets of Lenox at dusk and look at the dark, empty windows of short-term rentals. Some in particular I'm talking of, it's painful for me because these are my friends, or maybe they won't be my friends after I say this, but are proprietors of restaurants, bars, and at one time, there were always rentals at these places above their restaurants. And when the short-term rental boom happened, well, let's just kick all the tenants out and turn them into short-term rentals. I actually had a conversation, or I was confronted by an owner of one of these businesses who heard an opinion that I posted on social media, and advised me very strongly to be careful about what I said, because I don't know the whole situation. And I said, well, I think I do know the situation because my friends were evicted from your establishment. After trashing these well-known artists who had lived in Lenox, he said to me, well, Arthur, would you rather make $10,000 or $1,000? And I said, well, I guess that depends on how you make it. So, again, I support this amendment, but I ask that further thought be put into what we have here in short-term rentals. And in my dream world, we would be doing exactly what New York City is doing. If the man who bought, the LLC who bought the yellow building on the corner of Housatonic Street and Main Street, it would be great if they lived in that building rather than out of state. But now that building is going to be, you know, a nice wad of cash for this person while evicting. People have been steadfast members of this community. Edward Acker, everyone knows this photographer. He lived in that building for 30 years. And now he is unhoused. living with friends until something opens up in Lenox. Surprisingly, he still wants to live in Lenox, and this is something that I still question myself. But I still love this town because I moved here in 1991, and I want to stay. But every time I see luxury given to short-term rentals, especially when they are apartments that were taken from people who lived here, worked here, served your drinks, made your dinners, taught your children, they're not here anymore because the places are empty and they're dark and they're waiting for that 1, 2, 3 couple, that 31 days, that 75 days out of the year that they can be rented just to profit. Thank you.
Randy Grant, 169 Under Mountain Road. I see Mr. Lynch is about to get up and speak again, and I read earlier in the rules that there was a 2-minute time limit on speaking, so I just want to make sure we adhere to those rules before he speaks again.
If I can have permission, because I don't know if the timer was on.
Make it brief.
I think I was 1.5 minutes. I just want to emphasize that I was before the board, or before the town meeting and before boards a long time ago, advocating completely against short-term rentals on behalf of a whole number of my clients who are proprietors in town. This is not addressing anything to do with short-term rentals. It doesn't affect it. Short-term rentals are still allowed in every single district in this town for 75 days. What this is doing is penalizing one client who has pursued a course of action when he had 2 choices. I'll make these apartments that I own short-term rentals and I won't touch them. They will be in their current condition. Or I can spend money, renovate the buildings of downtown Lenox, add life safety features that are going to benefit the people that are visiting. Those were his 2 choices. He went with the latter. The Zoning Board of Appeals on unanimous reading of the zoning bylaw said that that was the way to go. So it's not short-term rental question.
Can I just counter one thing? So the word penalizing was used. This bylaw that passes won't penalize any projects that have already been approved by the ZBA. So that project that was approved by the ZBA is now, quote, grandfathered. So the passage of this amendment doesn't go back and penalize anybody.
Richard Burke, 216 Hubbard Street in Lenox. Mr. Moderator, I think the lines of division have been well drawn. I move the question.
Okay. So you called the question. So if you feel like you have heard enough and don't need any more discussion, if two-thirds of you feel that way, we will go ahead and vote. So all in favor of moving the question, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. 2/3 carries. We're going to vote on the Article 7. Sorry. Okay, we're voting on Article 7. Again, this is a 2/3 vote because it is a zoning bylaw change. So, all in favor of Article 7, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. 2/3 carries. Okay. I will, that's it, right, for the night? That is all. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn? So moved. Alrighty, everybody, have a great night. Thanks for coming to town meeting.